You know, you're going to have to shut up or I'm going to have you arrested.
We're going to have a little fun tonight. We're going to talk about some terrible things, but we'll have fun anyway.
It'll feel like 10 times the best orgasm. Come on, join us, plug in. It's going to happen.
Welcome to The AntiPartisan on NoPartySystem.com. I am John Means, The AntiPartisan, and today I'm being joined by California Libertarian Gubernatorial candidate. Sorry, I'm fumbling my words. Nickolas Wildstar. Thank you so much for joining me today, Mr. Wildstar.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. Thank you for having me, John. It's a pleasure to be here.
Right on. So, tell me a little bit about yourself. What's your background?
Absolutely. Well, I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm a Wisconsin transplant. I've been here in California since 1999. So I've been here almost 20 years now. It feels like home. But I moved out here originally from Milwaukee to pursue a career in music, and had a great deal of success as an underground rap artist. My first album, The Real, was able to get worldwide distribution and is currently now being sold on Amazon and other websites. And you can listen to the music on Pandora, Apple iTunes, Spotify, etc. And I even have one of my songs in the movie Scary Movie 4. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So I've had experienced a great deal of success again as an independent musician, and right now I'm still producing music and releasing that to the world for free.
Nice.
Through websites like SoundCloud. My new album, Evolve or Die, I'm using as pretty much a promotional tool for my campaign, as well as an opportunity for the people of California to get to know their candidate in an entertaining and interesting way. So please be sure to take a listen to that, of course. And,
that's cool. And let's make sure to give me
share.
some links so I can get them in the description for everybody to follow.
You got it. Absolutely.
Yeah. So now what pushed you towards politics?
I got very involved in the Occupy and Anonymous movement around 2010. And during such learned a great deal about Dr. Ron Paul. I started hearing chants of "In the Fed," and didn't really know what that was all about. But once I learned about him and his message of minimizing government tremendously, as well as auditing the Federal Reserve and getting rid of fiat currency in this country, it just seemed to me to be the most audacious thing that a politician could propose, especially, being caught up in the right-left paradigm of the Republicans and Democrats. It was refreshing to actually hear a candidate proposing of, getting rid of government where it doesn't belong, in our bedrooms, in our pocketbooks, and everything, pretty much. So just hearing that message from Dr. Ron Paul inspired me to get involved into becoming a representative of the public. I was already involved in community activism and, protesting against police brutality and income inequality and social disparities, etc. So it was just pretty much a better way and avenue of getting all of those issues that we were dealing with accomplished, and having a solution be presented to the problem.
Yeah. And Ron Paul is an amazing person to listen to him speak. Sometimes it's just an epiphany of how simple things actually are.
I know.
When you hear him, it's like,
exactly,
oh my God.
yeah.
Like, you see people try to attack him, and, they'll throw him a bad faith question, and he'll just knock it out of the park. You're like, oh my God, it's great. So,
Right.
So let's take a minute here to feed the haters, because here we are in my opinion, the greatest state of this union. And it's the state everybody hates to love and loves to hate, you know. So
Exactly.
What do you love about California? What's really struck you since you've been here?
Well, of course, the weather is beautiful, you know, compared to Wisconsin in the wintertime.
Yeah.
I mean, even now I'm able to go outside with flip-flops on,
Oh,
and
yeah.
that's just unheard of to people in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So I definitely love the weather. The women, definitely.
Yeah.
Thanks to the beautiful women of California, I was able to meet my gorgeous wife. And
Nice.
of course, being a single man and meeting the love of your life, that was a, you know, evolving moment for me as a man. So we've been married for 6 years now, and hopefully we just actually celebrated our 6-year anniversary. So
Nice.
hopefully we'll get
I just celebrated my 5th with my wife.
Oh wow!
on the
Congratulations,
10th.
my
Yeah.
man.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Yeah. So you know that connection. So it's definitely enlightening again as a person to be able to grow and find someone that you can, you know, experience life with, the happy times, the bad times, and every adventure in between. So
Now, do you have any children yet?
no, we do not. No children yet. But
I'm
we're
living
hoping
that experience right now, boy. Woo.
Oh wow! Good
Yeah.
luck to you on that one,
Yeah.
definitely. Well, no, there's a few things within the environment of, you know, that we live in that we would like to change first, and those are some of the things I don't like about California is the racial tension and prejudice, especially when it comes to people of color. You know, wanting to experience their life in a free and peaceful manner, and it's sad that these types of policies are in place that end up making people such as myself fearful and just wanting to have children and, you know, grow their family. So I would love to, again, have an opportunity to experience fatherhood, but first things first, we got to do something about what's going on in our state.
Well, don't wait too long, because we gotta get the next generation of freedom fighters coming up soon. You know.
That is true. That
You
is
know?
true.
Now, since you've been here, are there any particular locations in California that have like really resonated with you? You feel like, you know, places you like to visit often, or you have a deep connectivity to?
Oh yes, Palm Desert. I love Palm
Nice,
Desert.
yeah.
I don't know why. It's just, I guess, the emptiness of the space provides a fullness of the mind. You're able to see the sky, which is wonderful. Without all of the city lights, you can see all of the stars in the sky, and just creates that more connectivity with nature. Of course, up north, Yosemite, pretty much the same difference. You know, you really feel like a small fish in the big pond there, definitely.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever been to Sequoia and seen the massive trees there.
No, I haven't yet.
I'll tell you what,
But
it's a spiritual experience. It really is. Just seeing trees that are 500 feet tall and 30 feet around. It's just,
Wow.
it's mind-boggling, you know. And
yeah, I'm looking forward to the chance. I love Big Bear too.
Oh yeah,
that's another wonderful place. That just reminds me of home, but still California. So the weather,
and that's what's so great about California is you've got going from tropical climate to deep forest, mountains. You've got forests running up to coastline, sandy beaches, snowy slopes. Like literally, California is like nature's amusement park. There's just
it certainly is
everything to do here. It's absolutely amazing. But you know, I guess we got to move on to serious subjects. You know, as beautiful it is, a lot of people leaving California right now, and if you ask them why, the very first thing on top of their list is going to be high taxation. So, as governor, how are you going to address our taxation problems here in California?
Well, I would love to eliminate the taxation problem here in California, and that's by trimming the fat, getting rid of those unnecessary taxes that we, the people, tend to be subjected to without any choice. For instance, the new gas tax increase, there wasn't any weighing in with the people to see if that was something that they wanted. It was just done legislatively, and without us weighing in on the matter. So I would love to have an opportunity to cut taxes like that and reform the tax code altogether. It definitely is intrusive and is restrictive when it comes to people such as yourself and I, the working class, to be able to take home all of our property and our earnings and be able to have it distributed as we choose. We're not giving the choice anymore of where our tax dollars go. And for instance, I don't have children and my money goes towards public education and other social welfare programs that I may disagree with. I shouldn't have to pay for someone else's child upcoming and upbringing. Those parents themselves should be held responsible. So it's choices like this that we, the people, are robbed of when it comes to our taxes. So I would love to get taxation to become a voluntary type of a practice once more, as our nation's founders intended it to be. So getting rid of taxes, and of course, I believe the best way to expose what I would like to do is by doing an audit of the state's finances. We talk about the misappropriation of funds and embezzlement scandals, etc., that happens quite often in this state. So with all of the hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars being wastefully spent there on those types of issues, I believe that exposing it through an audit would validate my reasons to eliminate taxes like the income tax. I would love to reduce that from the 13% that it is right now to 0%. The property tax that they tend to relate to funding every other type of program right now is scaring away a lot of homeowners and a lot of housing development. So I would like to reduce that to 0%. The sales tax, the new marijuana, new recreational marijuana bill that just passed brings along additional taxes on the sales of marijuana. And in some places that's 20-30%. So I believe leveling the state sales tax across the state at 7%, flat would be more enticing for people to want to buy more goods and, of course, leave more money in their pocket and leave more wiggle room for businesses to actually be able to profit from doing business. So there's just little ways where I would love to, again, reduce the amount of taxes being collected in the state, because the tax revenue that we collect is also the money that we spend. So I would love to cut spending.
I think most people agree with it so much. I think it's such a complex issue. People don't understand
they don't,
a lot of it. And there's this aspect too where, a lot of people, they're good old civic nationalists. They don't mind pitching into the kitty, Right. One of my constant underlying themes through my show, through my website, is how this is so directly relative to the 16th Amendment, of course, but it's not even so much about the money that's taken from us. It's about how it's spent, and that it's not represented to us at all. We have no idea how our money is being spent, and this went in at a federal level with the 16th Amendment, which says, the Congress shall have the power to lay and collect taxes on income from whatever source derived, without enumeration and without consensus among the several states. And, this, of course, enabled Federal Reserve and IRS, but more importantly, it became standard operating procedure for all governmental bodies. And not only that, now into corporate and business world, where it's like they really don't have to justify their costs or their expenditures. They'll just charge whatever they want, pay whatever they want, while they're, it's very disproportionate. So
it is very much so. And that's the thing about it, is because of the connectivity of, I guess, all of the bells and whistles involved, a lot of people don't really understand how removing one domino would cause the effect of them all to fall. So that's why I believe the audit itself would cause that domino effect and give us, we the people, a reason to want to eliminate taxation altogether and get back to that voluntary practice. So, of course, taxes is one of the first thing I would like to deal with as a priority once I'm elected governor.
Yeah. Now, seeing a couple interviews and a couple times you've spoken, another significant part of your platform seems to be that you want to significantly cut salaries of state employees as part of your budget reform, and starting with yourself.
Starting with myself, you are correct. Well, there's tons of government employees in the state of California that receive six-figure salaries, if not more, eight-figure salaries even, and it's just disproportionate, as you said, when it comes to taxpayers' money being spent on these government employees. If anything, I think it should be another voluntary type of position. These are people of our community that's supposed to be representatives of our people in our communities. So I think, if anything, as a representative and as an example, I would love to cut the governor's salary from what it is right now, which is almost $130,000, I believe, to about $99K, and flatten every government employee salary to reduce that to under $100,000 as well. Now, that's not including those government employees that work and get overtime. I won't be, so a garbage truck driver, or something like that, would still have an opportunity to earn a higher income the way it should be.
Well, now, see, I think when you say that you want to cut government salaries, I think the initial response, people are like, yeah, you're right on. I like this idea. But the big roadblock I see it hitting is law enforcement and teachers, especially.
Right.
People are immediately going to question that. So, I mean.
Well, that I would say to that right there, because I actually said that to a friend of mine who is a police officer. And once he understood how I would implement such measures, then he backed off of such a reduction. I mean, even with teachers themselves, you have the head coach at UCLA getting almost $4 million, compared to a teacher that's receiving how much? Pennies. You have professors at UC colleges living out of their vehicles, which is now against the law, going to classes and teaching our students. So who do we want to spend more money on? The teachers in the classroom and the classrooms themselves, and actually retrofitting them for the children of tomorrow and the education that they should be receiving, or sports and other types of recreational programs. So there is, again, an amount of money being wastefully spent on administrators and faculty members versus other people that are more indirect, having direct contact with the students themselves. So that's why I say, again, by reducing the salary itself and another thing is the pension program. Of course, that's digging us deep into financial debt that we can't ever come out of. So as governor, I would definitely, again, make an example out of myself and refuse any pension. After my 4 years serving in office, I walk away with what I earned doing my job. And I think every person working any job should start believing and thinking that way. When you work any job, there is no security for you. You have to create that for yourself, and we shouldn't be dependent upon government to create that safety net for us. But yet we have.
Independence was a core value of the founding of this nation, and it's something that we've absolutely lost.
Severely.
Completely lost it. So now another.
And that's also due to creation of policy and people going along with it for some reason.
Well, and we know that so often it's about about wealth, and often, especially when you're talking politics, sure, there's some greed, there's some corruption going on, there's other things, but when you're in politics, you're thinking about other people's wealth too, and unfortunately, our politicians haven't been so responsible about that for a long time now. Haven't been
Especially
leaving
tax.
people avenues to build and retain their own wealth.
Right.
So it's really tragic. Now, a lot of people don't realize we got so much hate pointed at California. A lot of people don't realize that this is the breadbasket of this nation. We produce 75% of the table vegetables that this nation eats. We are the number one producers of cotton, more than the next three combined. We feed and clothe this nation, and everybody thinks of, this 12-mile strip on the land of the coast where the money is and where all these political views come out of. We're an agricultural state. We are the agricultural state. In fact, this nation would be crippled without us. So, now that I'm done bragging about California, where does this go? Agriculture is such a big issue, and especially in relation to immigration. A lot of policies going in now. We see this current administration's policies, and even outside of that, it's a big issue here. Most of our agricultural field workers are illegal, undocumented aliens, and we're in a position where we can't even do much about it. We would literally cripple ourselves by pushing too hard on it.
Absolutely.
What do we do? How do we deal with California's immigration issues?
Well, we have to stand up for the people of this state. And as a sworn representative of the public, I would be upholding my oath to uphold the United States Constitution. And I think that's where a lot of government employees and representatives lose their sight of focus and responsibility, is when they start taking in their own prejudices and views, opinions, etc., and then putting them into public policy. And what should prevent us from doing so is the United States Constitution. And we don't have the right within those barriers to discriminate against anyone living in this state, whether they be an undocumented citizen or a naturalized citizen. The only jurisdiction that the federal government has is over naturalization, not immigration. So for the state of California and the people here in this state being an integral part of its economy and its development of wealth and goods and services, as you pointed out, to help generate the mass of wealth that the whole country reaps benefits from, it's imperative that we protect everyone here in the state. So there would not be any deportation of such, and it wouldn't be necessary. And of course, the real reason why law enforcement itself is in practice is to eliminate criminals, whether they be citizens of the state or undocumented citizens.
I think a lot of people, in California often, it really is hard for us to understand the depth that racial issues can go in other places. This is just such an open-minded place, and people are so tolerant here that we really don't understand. And I think most people here, it's not even so much that, these people are Hispanic, or even that, they're here illegally, but they feel like there needs to be a documentation process here. We want to know who's here. We want to know who they are, where they're living. Hey, the government's got my thumbprint. They know who my family is. They know my address. I got to pay my insurance and my taxes. I think that is a big part of people's complaint about the presence of illegal workers in the state.
And that's fine. If they want to become documented, they should have the choice of becoming citizens. I think that would be a better incentive for people that aren't born and raised in the state of California or any, state in the union to come here. Is, hey, we're going to reduce the charges to where it's going to be less expensive for you to be able to apply, not to mention the waiting periods need to be changed dramatically. If you want to come here to this country, and start working and have that opportunity to create a life for yourself, then even to apply for a visa, you'd have to not be present in the state. So it's a matter of them waiting first. And the government practice of refusing people the ability to travel from one place to another is an infringement on our natural right to travel. So the government itself does not have the authority to do such. And these are, again, just elemental practices that the government has gotten out of control with, letting us think that is normal. It's not.
Yeah.
And we shouldn't be restricted from going from one place to another, whether I come from Wisconsin to come here or if I came from another country to come here. No one should have the right or authority to refuse me from doing so, especially if I'm living here peacefully, I'm working and adding to the economy here, and I'm a benefit to the society. I'm a productive member. So, and the farm workers that are out there that are undocumented, they are those tremendous contributors. If they were to leave, even the taxes themselves that they pay, sales tax, they buy goods and services here in the state. So they're always paying taxes in one way or another. So we need to release the mentality of control.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts first, is people believing that for some reason that a piece of paper is going to prevent a criminal from doing bad things.
Yeah.
It's not, never has. And even with guns, it hasn't ever either.
Yeah,
Whether,
I think a lot of people too, the another big picture on it is the cartels and the criminals that come over undocumented, which, you almost, we won't even crack open the issue, because then we know we're talking about prohibition on drugs, we're talking about international policies, a lot of other things that really could rectify this situation.
precisely.
But let's go ahead, on a national level, just to get your views. How did you feel, for example, about the DACA compromise that was proposed? And just to recap it, it was 12-year path to citizenship, end visa lottery, end chain migration. And the Democrats, pretty thoroughly rejected it, How did you feel about it as a proposal?
I rejected it altogether. I don't think there, again, needs to be any implementation of any government policy dictating one's travel or restriction of or ability to do so. So I think all of these attempts to pass this policy, these types of policies, are unnecessary. That's one of the main reasons why I'm running as a libertarian, why I hope more people will start to vote libertarian, is because libertarian politicians would prevent these type of measures from ever being passed, period. The buck stops and ends with the respect of your liberty as an individual. And
I think a lot of people have been convinced that national security issue, it's the same old story. Give up some freedom to be a little more secure, and I think that's where we've come to with the immigration issue.
And what did Ben Franklin say? Those people that give up liberty and freedom for the sake of security deserve neither.
Yeah.
So we got to start thinking again, what are we giving up here? Every time we push, somebody's going to pull back. So and that's just how we are innately as human beings. When you were growing up as, a child, every time your parent told you not to do something, we did it anyway, That's how we learned as human beings. And that's the thing, is we got to get out of the mind state of believing that the government needs to be our nanny, our big brother, our authoritative figure. It does not need to be. We need to be in control of government. It's supposed to serve us, we the people, not the other way around. Yeah. So I don't want to have government be able to dictate how I behave in my bedroom or in my home or in my workplace or any other place for that matter, especially if I'm doing so in a peaceful manner that's not harming anyone else.
Well, and that sounds like a great segue into the next topic. And, it's one I don't even like to dig into, but it's on, everybody's radar right now, which is, of course, gun control. We're having these continued tragic events that many of us feel like have deeper underlying causes. But the issue so often is about the firearms.
Right.
Do you have any take on what's going on now after this Parkland shooting and the CNN hyperbole, the children speaking up? What's your take on all this?
Well, as tragic as the shooting was and every other school shooting incident before it, what's awful about them all is that they're all used to sensationalize the public, to get them up in arms, to give up their arms. And it's sad that our media is being used as a tool by politicians and, by those seeking to achieve an agenda where they want to disarm the public as a mass. And they take these isolated incidents and say, see, this is why everyone everywhere else should give up their natural right to protect themselves. So something that happened in Florida can now, or in Texas, can now affect something here in California. And it's sad that we, again, do not have representatives of the public standing by the United States Constitution and protecting every citizen's right to bear arms, whether it be guns or any type of gun or a 3D printed gun, a knife. There's many ways that one naturally should and inherently should be able to protect themselves. So I support constitutional carry measures and would veto any type of restrictions of any person's right to protect themselves. So it's sad again that the media is using these incidents to again kind of take advantage of our natural instinct as human beings to fight or flight.
And there's this thing going on that everybody, all partisans do, but it's really big on the left of using the kids as emotional leverage. And
right.
I think a lot of people are really upset with the protests they've seen from this, because now we've seen in the background not only like scripted questions being handed to the kids, but the pro-gun kids weren't allowed to talk. They were just shoved aside, and it's like, hey, if we're going to say the kids' opinion value, let's hear them all.
Precisely.
But personally, I think it's ludicrous. These are children. I remember when I was a child, and I was, naive and idealistic at the age they're at. I really don't care what their opinion is about gun control. That's the bottom line, And
you know what? There's a lot of parents and people that have trained children to protect themselves, and those youth are more confident in doing such. Of course, they're not going to be able to give the light of day to speak whatsoever. And it's sad, again, that our youth is being used to shape public's perception when adults need to start taking responsibility for their own actions and for what we're doing to our environment, to where people themselves aren't allowed the opportunity to protect themselves in an environment like a classroom. I would feel much safer sending my children to a school where I know that the children or that the parents and teachers have an opportunity to protect the children in those classrooms. Whether they chose to or not is their choice, but to have the ability to do so lawfully is where it counts the most.
Yeah. Well, you know, and my wife is an elementary school teacher. So
Oh,
this is an issue that has really struck close to us. And now she doesn't work, she works in the next county over. But this county that we're in, they just passed concealed carry for teachers, which
wow.
I don't know, you know, we'll see how it works out. I see, you know, I
Well,
see
again, but
potential
you'd
in
rather
certain
the teacher
communities
not-
for it to be a real problem, you know?
Right.
But well,
There's a possibility, but again, you don't see many criminals running into a bank where they know that there's armed guards present. You
Yeah.
don't see them robbing, you know, the Loomis trucks or
Yeah,
anything
yeah.
like
the places in Arizona and Texas that are open carry, there is no bank robbery there. That's it. Like you're stupid if you rob a bank there.
Exactly.
You're gonna get some holes in you, you know.
precisely.
So yeah, how do you
again-
feel about existing regulations with background checks and wait periods? Are these reasonable standards to have now, or are these something we need to peel back to?
Absolutely. If anything, they do nothing but subject peaceful, lawful citizens from being able to exercise their right, their constitutional right, freely. Again, a criminal isn't going to register their weapon to do a crime. The majority of them are done by those that don't. And even if they even if they are registered, it typically does not end up helping in the reduction of the crime itself.
Yeah.
The person is going to end up injuring that person, and then the police respond after the fact.
Yeah.
So it's not going to reduce crime as people think. So there needs to be a better way of investigating these types of incidents, homicides, murders, etc. And I think the ability of registering any type of sale of property should be left to the business owner. Any seller of arms or cars or whatever the case may be, it should be up to the business owner themselves to choose to enact such measurements to sell that product, because it again is just another piece of property that you are choosing to purchase yourself. So there should not be any restriction to purchase of property whatsoever.
Well, you know, in that regard, I'll tell you one thing that always amazes me when one of these horrible events goes down is all of a sudden it's the NRA's fault. And I
Right.
don't get this. It never, not once, ever in the history of shootings has been an NRA member. Never. You know?
Exactly.
And I mean, oh, well, they
Yeah,
lobby,
they're the
they
ones
lobby
to
for the
blame.
laws and whatever. And it's like, hey, listen, pharmaceutical lobbyists are there pushing opioids that are killing 110,000 people in America every year. I mean, more than
Right.
guns and automobiles and terrorism and heroin overdose combined. And when Michael Jackson dies, when Tom Petty dies, nobody's freaking out on their lobbyists. What is this thing with
Exactly.
the NRA? I don't.
Nor
I
do
mean,
they
I don't like
talk
lobbying in any form, but
Right.
you know, I don't see why the NRA gets the blame. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, yeah, because they're the ones actually fighting for our right to protect ourselves, and any totalitarian is going to object to that, in every way, shape, or form. And you're right, with all of these epidemics happening from prescription drugs, and especially with gun violence, it's a shame that people never point out the fact that the majority of these shooters are on psychoactive medicines being prescribed to them. So those are really the culprit, and I think there are underlying issues that would reduce the amount of gun violence that we see in our country. Just look at our media that portrays the use of guns as being heroic or glorified in some way, shape, or fashion. Most of our action movies, they're using guns to harm people, and in video games. It's sad that, again, the majority of our society embraces guns on one hand, but then when it comes to actual gun use, then automatically we're being shamed because of it.
Yeah.
And again, peaceful citizens, legal citizens that are upholding their constitutional right to protect themselves, that are not doing anything to harm anyone, tend to end up being the victim, being victims the most.
Yeah, I agree, and I mean, there's all the numbers, all the statistics agree with it. It's just so ridiculous. You know, the one thing I have heard proposed on these mass shootings that I really like, and I feel like it really will address a big part of the problem, is you media blackout the shooter's name and his photo. You do not publish the name and the photo. And like in this situation, we wouldn't be calling him Cruz. It would just be the Parkland shooter, and nobody knows what the hell he looks like. You know,
Right.
I think that's really important, because it seems like a lot of these people are really seeking infamy in their action, and and in death if they die doing it. You know.
Yeah. And the media definitely embraces that aspect of that, because you do have people acting on that sentiment that, hey, if I commit this heinous crime, I'm going to go down in history, and I'll be known by everyone, by all of the world, simply because there will be some type of expose about it, and it'll run on news headlines for months, even years after the fact. So,
and I mean, even guys like Jeffrey Dahmer, I mean, they literally they got mail in prison from fans, from girls who wanted to marry him and stuff. It's like,
even Charles Manson, up until his death, still had supporters and people in love with him for some reason.
Yeah.
But I believe, again, the majority of that type of response and admiration came from media's involvement, and it's sad that they don't take responsibility for the type of press that they put out there regarding these cases.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, let's get off the map a little bit. Here there be monsters. I had mentioned to you in my email, one of the things I wanted to bring up was this idea of a white ethno-state. And it's going around really big in the YouTube debate and philosophical committee community. Is it an idea that you're familiar with at all or have heard about?
Somewhat. Are you talking about the alt-right movement and its development?
Yeah, now, and these guys are a little right of the alt-right even, it's very nuanced with a lot of these communities now. But I mean, to sum up, there is a group of so-called white people who feel like their culture is being displaced, and that they want to form a state or a community around their culture. And I think this is a really interesting idea to put in front of a libertarian, because it seems like a great part of it is really about self-determination. So kind of what's your view on this white ethno-state idea?
I believe every person has the right to express themselves, whether we like it or not. We can't force everyone to like us. We can't force everyone to get along. We can't force everyone to be loving of one another. And excuse me, there will be those individuals that will always feel that way. Our goal as a United States and as a country that's expressing more of a diversified type of a nationality, we need to embrace those aspects of who we are as Americans versus those people that want to identify with some sort of a nationalist type of mentality, white nationalist, black nationalist, whatever the case may be.
Well, and I think most people agree with that. And I mean, the whole idea is something of a canard. There's not enough people to really get behind it. But as a mental exercise, it really gives a lot to think about in this time of seemingly increasing racial tensions in America. So, I just thought it would be interesting to get your take on it. In general, though, what is your take on, does it seem like racial tensions are getting worse in America to you? What's your take on it?
It is, but it isn't. I mean, I see it more in media than I do in person, and the times where I do see it in person is very minute and few and far between. Mm-hmm. So it's crazy, again, that with me being a black man, the actual racial prejudices that I've experienced in my life have been minute. But overall, I have experienced them. It is a big problem when collectively, and once they've been accumulated such, it bears on aspects of my life. For instance, with my run for governor, there's been tons of people that have been prejudiced against my candidacy because of the color of my skin, because of my hairstyle, because I have, a goatee on my face. So there's all sorts of reasons why people will express some sort of dislike towards any individual, and that's just their own opinion. When it comes to the point that where they're preventing someone else from expressing themselves freely, that's when it becomes a problem, especially when it's being done in a forceful manner and in a threatening manner indeed.
And now this is what a lot of these ethno-nationalist guys would say, because there's been a lot of studies at this point, and real accredited studies, that generally speaking, a more homogeneous population will experience a lot of benefits, including increased civic participation, greater trust in the communities. There was a 20-year study done by a doctor named Putman. There's a great article called "The Downside of Diversity" that Boston Globe wrote on it. And there's a lot to substantiate the idea that forced diversity can actually be really, really disruptive to communities, which is a big basis of what these guys say. Now, we see a lot of places it's not a problem. It's absolutely not a problem whatsoever. But there are neighborhoods all over the place where your ethnicity will matter when you go there.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
In black neighborhoods, you see the reverse effect of that happening with gentrification. These are typically lower income neighborhoods, and incomes, big money developers increasing the values of the land and property around them that end up driving out those residents living in that neighborhood. And they tend to be, not people of color. So, and when you see this happening, this forced segregation happening, it is extremely disruptive. So I would agree with them in that aspect. I don't think any forceful type of segregation should be happening at all. And there has been blowback because of that. Allowing it to happen naturally, organically, is the best way for it to flourish. And it's sad that a lot of public policy has kind of created this mashing up of sorts, but here we are. And I'm much more happier because of it, because I would hate to have to go to a restaurant and be told that I won't be served there because I'm black, and that actually be law. So now, if there wants to be a business owner that would like to express such, then they're welcome to do so, but you're also going to have to deal with the ramifications of such, and loss of business tends to end up being a result of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So while we're over here on the racial spectrum here in no man's land, because this is, you can't get a political candidate to talk about this stuff. This is why I'm happy to engage on this. But, speaking specifically in regards to the black community, we could point at a lot of communities and talk about problems there. But speaking about the black communities right now in America, we see some problems. We see some pretty bad statistics coming out as far as violent crime and education. A lot of people they looked at Obama's presidency really hopefully as a chance to kind of bridge some gaps in racial ideology and kind of help empower black communities. And
Right.
a lot of people, including myself, kind of feel like he really did the opposite of that. That we're kind of
You're right
coming out
about
of it
that.
a lot worse. And pardon me while I ramble for a second, just to set up this next question, because there's this really interesting thing. You get the blacktivist type people who will corner a politician, and they'll say, "What are you going to do for black people?" And it's really funny watching a conservative get asked this question because they look like they're fucking Polacks. They're just like, "What?" And they're just like, "Well, I work for Americans." Okay, well, we get it. You go ask a Democrat, what are you going to do for black people? Oh, they got the answer. We got a telephone for you. We got other people's money to give to you. It's going to be great. We're gonna help you out. Just don't expect anything else to change. And then of course you speak to a libertarian, a more independent-minded person, and they'll give you this really reasonable answer about we need to take care of things equally, and we're all part of this, and we need to work together. And the bottom line is that's not satisfactory at this point. There are problems that are unique to black communities in America, and they need to be addressed as such. So I guess my final question here would be, as governor of California, what are you going to do for black communities?
Well, with economic inequality, my goal to get rid of taxes is not only going to benefit everyone, but it's definitely going to affect the black community and people of color, especially with them living off of those median incomes, the majority of them in this state. So being able to help out the middle class and get rid of those taxes that are preventing them from, or forcing them to choose between having to pay for food or having to pay to keep their lights on, is definitely going to be a benefit for them. Of course, with the creation of free market options for utilities, instead of you having to just choose from Cal Edison, you now have multiple companies providing power to you. So there will be cheaper costs for you. And that, I feel like, being a libertarian and providing those options is not only going to provide every person in this state, but most definitely the people of the black community. And of course, when it comes to police and their exercise of law, getting them back onto becoming upholders of the Constitution and not infringing upon your constitutional rights will be my main focus.
Predators putting money in the pockets of corrupt politicians, because that's really what the cops are doing right now, and
right. And that's what a lot of people don't know either, is the practice of law enforcement revolves around commercial law, which is them having the ability to pull you over because you don't have the right color tags on your car, or allowing them to come into your home because you chose to grow a plant, or something like that. So again, putting in those precautionary measures and putting into enactment the actual application of law itself would, of course, reduce the amount of incidents that the police have with people in the black community, and of course reduce the amount of violent crimes that happen as well, because the majority of those issues with the black community, them selling drugs, is because they're doing so, quote unquote, unlawfully. Now you take away the decriminalization part, now they're given the opportunity to flourish and possibly grow up out of their neighborhoods and
Yeah, and of course we know if we ended this ridiculous prohibition on drugs, I mean, besides the obvious benefit of taking warfare out of our streets, which
Precisely.
is great. Yeah, it would create actual businessmen. There would
Exactly.
be no more drug dealers. You would have to have an education and
Right.
experience in marketing and know what you're doing and have to take care of your
Exactly.
customers. I mean,
And every business provider wants to take care of their customers. they don't. A dead customer is not a good customer. You know. So
and
even
if we did it,
prescription
we'd be
providers know
watching
that.
immigration going towards Mexico, because everybody would be going back to work at the profitable businesses over there. That's what's funny
Right.
about it too. It's just.
And that would take away the underground criminal activity of the black markets as well.
Yeah.
So,
just a while back, I had Professor Walter Block on, who is he wrote the book Defending the Undefensible, which is a field guide for libertarianism. He explains why pimps and prostitutes and drug dealers are the unsung heroes of our country because they're being abused for delivering services. But.
right.
We got into a lot of topics, and this dawned on me because we got into welfare state, and it's how it's this incentivizing poor behavior that it's disproportionately affected black communities in America. I mean, we're telling people, hey, we'll give a mother and a child money for housing and food, but only if you kick the father out of the house. And it's like,
Right.
whoa, this is crazy. What are your thoughts on the welfare system as it is right now?
I definitely believe it needs to be reformed. I myself, I do not advocate or support such an idea to where I, as a taxpayer, should have to fund the upbringing of a child from birth to 18 years of age. So I would love to have an opportunity to reform the welfare system and encourage adults to be adults.
Yeah.
If you're having a child, you're going to have to take responsibility for that child, whether it be by mistake or you choosing to have that child. Yeah. So I believe reforming it to where the parent is now given a window of 1 to 5 years to receive public support, case-by-case scenario, of course, and with the limitation of there being 3 children. So after the 3rd child, if you have a 4th child, hey, you're on your own. Exactly. So parents need to start taking responsibility for their decisions. And also what you pointed out about the qualification factors and eliminating there being 2 sources of income. If the household needs to help, the household needs to help. Yeah. And they shouldn't be, prevented from having an opportunity to get that helping hand that they need to build their family, I
absolutely agree, and like, Professor Block, he's very ultra hardy. He's just like, well, we just end welfare. And then the free market will eventually take over. And it's like, well, and I get it. I understand what you're saying. But we're kind of at a point now where we can't just end it. The blowback from that in so many communities would be intense. It would cost life. It would cost a lot
I believe
of life,
that, Well, yeah, exactly. And I believe we do have a responsibility as a community, of course, to take care of our debt and not continue to pass that on to our children. So I would work to have the welfare system be funded by the public and by the public sector, and instead of it being funded by taxpayers.
Well, again, you're coming to that problem, though, that many people are just fine and happy being civic nationalists. They will take money out of their pocket. They don't need to know what it's going for because they're just going to assume it's done right. And this is what has caused problems with things like the welfare state, because we all agree if somebody's hungry and they need housing, we have a civil, empathetic society. We take care of people like that. It shouldn't even be a question,
And that's fine. And I believe as government, that's should be one of our roles, is to help the disproportionate, those people that can't help themselves, because we are providing a civil service to the society. So if there are people that want to help and provide a certain amount of funding to assist in those efforts, that's fine. But I believe it could be done more responsibly if it was, organizations that were providing those types of benefits and services to the public without the government being involved.
Yeah, and what I suggested to Professor Block, and it's something that I've really thought about since then. Hey, if we're going to have this massive welfare budget, how about instead we incentivize good behavior? How about in underprivileged communities, we give a kid for keeping his grades C or better through the school year? We give the parents a stipend if they need it for their kid graduating high school. I mean,
exactly.
Stay off of probation and get good grades, and we'll make sure you have enough money to live. And it's
right.
Like, this really seems like and a better way to do it than a living wage, because it's those would be policies that would promote better behavior. Yeah. I completely support that. My wife and I, the other day, we were talking about drivers receiving some sort of a gas card or something just because they didn't happen to get any citations for the year or something like that, opposed to them having their vehicle registration fees increased. Yeah. That, you're being penalized more so for doing something good. Maybe we should look at this on a larger scale. How about instead of trying to be punitive and forcing people to behave the way the state wants them to, how about we incentivize good behavior? And steer our society in a better direction that way.
Exactly. And that should be the role of government itself, is to be those examples of the best of our society, those people that are creating better standards for everyone else, because that's what we inherently want from our communities itself. So if we're going to select members to represent us, they need to do exactly that, opposed to breaking it down and destroying pretty much and degrading every facet of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you completely, and that's why I'm glad you're running. Thank you very much for seeking public service.
Thank you.
My agenda politically, I told you I'm not a libertarian. I'm an anti-partisan, and in fact, as far as I know, I'm really the only one. But what it means on the surface is my first objective is to remove the Democratic Republican Party from power in America. I do view them as a single party, and I think that needs to be the goal we all take. And when you say that to people, you say, well, who do you elect then? Who do you, how do you choose? It doesn't matter at this point. These people have been tag teaming us for 100 years. They've sold our government out from underneath us. We need to remove them from power. Trying to define the landscape beyond it is almost even impossible to imagine. Right now, just the objective needs to be, if they have a D or an R next to their name, do not vote for them. Period.
Right.
You're
right about that.
And we might be able to reclaim our nation if we do that.
Well, it's imperative that we do, especially if we want to have a future that's going to be prosperous for ourselves and the next generations to come. Mm-hmm. We need to rebuild our wealth. It's being pillaged right before our eyes, and we're continuing to dig ourselves deeper into debt, whether it be on the statewide level or on a nationwide level. The national debt is trillions of dollars and going up tremendously each and every day. So we need to reverse that tax and spend process, because it will bankrupt everyone in our country. Yeah. So I completely agree with you. I would love to have an opportunity to get rid of the two-party system, which is why I'm running as a Libertarian candidate. I ran in 2014 as an independent candidate and am still independent-minded. I just feel like with the Libertarian Party platform, it gives me an opportunity as an individual to put back into place what has been missing in government, and that is the respect for liberty itself. And as a representative of the public and of the principle of liberty, I would love to have an opportunity to put that into place and create some policies that respect such.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, gosh, thank you so much for your time today, Mr. Wildstar. I think this has been a great conversation.
Thank you.
Hang out for a second. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up, and then we'll talk about some logistics here. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in today. I hope I gave you a little insight into this fabulous gubernatorial candidate. There's going to be links to all of his media in the description, so please check it out. As always, please check out the website, nopartysystem.com. Thanks a bunch,
Yes.
everybody, for tuning in. Peace.